Hi, Craig Farmer again from Transformational Group. We're on to the second mistake that we often see people making, and that is they're not clear about the actual plan that they need. Now, of course, that they're saying to themselves, I want a strategic plan, but there are 4 different sorts, and I'll explain them to you in just a second. When you're not clear about what sort of plan you need, what we find is that people start getting frustrated, they have unmet expectations, and sometimes there's disengagement. And I want to save you from that heartache if you're going to spend the time and maybe some money investing in developing a strategic plan. You might be wondering why I've got a brick in my hand. It's because I want to tell you a story. A number of years ago, I was at someone's house and they were mowing their lawns and it stopped. And I looked out and I heard this banging, bang, bang, and I saw them trying to fix their lawnmower with a brick. Well, that's just ludicrous, isn't it? That would be stupid. You've got to have the right tool for the job. I'm saying you need to have the right tool. And so as you're thinking about what sort of strategic plan you are going to develop, the first thing you're going to need to ask yourself is, what stage is my business at? Now, there's 3 types of stages. Let me explain them to you. So you want to make sure that your plan is applicable to whether you're an established business or you're in the process of expanding and building your business. Maybe it's a blank slate and you're developing your dream. So we won't need this, will we? So let me explain to you the 4 sorts of plans that you're going to be thinking about. The first is what we call an articulated plan. It simply means that you have priorities and goals and obviously strategies, because people want to know what your priorities are. They want to know what you're planning to do in this next year or 2 or 5 years. The second sort of strategic plan is what we call strategically differentiated. Now, the difference between the first and the second is that in this one, what you're going to do is you're going to bring in outside data. You're going to go out and ask your customers. You're going to look at the political or the environmental or the financial situation in and around your business. So it's what's called secondary data. And you're going to be asking and finding out from these different sources what is happening outside of our business that's going to eventually affect our business. Now, if you don't do this, then what you're doing when you're just making an articulated plan is thinking, well, this is what I want to do, regardless of whether it's going to work because other people want it or because it's possible because of other factors. So this actually allows you to become strategic. I know it's all called strategic planning, but this is when it starts to become strategic, when you're looking and saying, what do people want? What do people need? What's possible in the various environments that we find ourselves in? What are our competitors doing, for instance? What's the government policies? So that's the second sort of plan, is what we call strategically differentiated. The third sort of plan is what we call strategic engagement. And what we're going to do at this level is we're going to do the first 2, but now we want to make sure that our whole organisation is engaged in this process. Now, the way we do this is to cascade goals all the way down through the organisation. So rather than just having the executive or the key managers having goals, now everyone has got a part to play in making this strategy actually occur. When you do this, of course, you're going to get greater buy-in and greater accountability. So that's the third sort of plan, is around what we call strategic engagement. Now, of course, you might be thinking, yeah, of course we want to engage the whole organisation. You might, but in this level of it, we're actually asking our questions around, do we have the processes in place to actually make it occur? Some people, they want to engage or they desire to engage, but they don't have. So they don't actually have the processes or the systems in order to engage the whole organisation. So that's the other part of this third type of strategic plan. The fourth and the final type of strategic plan is one where we want to drive organisational transformation. So this is the last sort, organisational transformation. This is where we want to change culture, where we want to change a massive direction of the organisation. This is where we want to change something that's fundamentally been a part of the organisation, and it's got to cascade right through. So this is actually the most difficult of all four type of plans to not only develop, but then of course to implement. To do this, of course, one of the things that we do is, instead of just setting a plan, we actually have our measurables, we review it regularly, and we communicate right across the board constantly and consistently in our message and our methods. I wanted to share with you finally one simple tool to start getting the data that you might need. It's called the SWOT analysis. Many of you will have heard of it. Before you push pause or even stop, let me just share with you some insights that I think might help you as you start this process. Now, you remember that there's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Now, the strengths, of course, you want to try and capitalise on. Your weaknesses, you want to try and mitigate. Your opportunities, you want to try and exploit, if you can put it that way. And the threats, you want to at least be alerted to. Now, I want you to notice on the strengths and the weakness side that this is an internal thing. This is where you're going to find out your internal capacity and capability. The information is coming from customers, maybe from employees. It's coming from those who know your organisation well. Your opportunities and your threats, though, are from the external sources. So they are, when you do your surveys, out into the world, if you like, out into the political, the environmental, or whatever your environment is. But you're going to find from there what your actual opportunities and potential threats are to the organisation. Your strengths and weaknesses you often can have some control over, or maybe a lot of control over, but your opportunities and threats you often have very little control, but maybe hopefully some influence. So as we think about what sort of plan you might need, just keep those four things in mind. What sort of plan? There's 4 plans. And then what part of, what phase of development are you in? And that way you'll be less inclined to pick up a brick and try and make that fix everything. It won't. And I'd rather set you up for success so that you don't make some mistakes that actually in the long run means that the others in the organisation, maybe the board or maybe key employees, when you say we're going to do a strategic plan, they actually disengage and they are maybe even cynical. So I'd rather you learn from the mistakes of others and not make them. Enjoy.